That'll wake you all up. Joy in my heart, what a great way to start. Sheeta, thank you for that introduction. I guess I should update it. It's actually a 21-year journey now. And so time keeps marching on, as we will understand here today. Does anyone else here feel like you've been on a roller coaster these past weeks, months, years, and even decades? Yeah. A bit like you're on the final spin cycle of the wash? Well, as many of you know, there's a lot of changes in the planets and dimensions, and we're all directly impacted. We are in a transitory period, the greatest of which is an evolution from the Piscean age to the Age of Aquarius, which is also described, and many of us talk about the transformation from 3D to 5D. Something that I and others around here, particularly after reading Waking Up in 3D by Maureen St. Germain last summer, talked a lot about. And it's causing an amazing amount of stress, there's no question about it. Yet before we look to blame others or anything else, you have to understand, at least if you believe as I do, and many do, that we chose this time to come. This is not a period for the faint of heart. It's not easy being around as long-standing institutions and traditions crumble before your very eyes, and things we used to rely on for support are now unsteady and untrustworthy. So today I'd like to take a closer look at the period we find ourselves, what it means for our lives, and some practical tips for enduring. I signed up last week and watched an ARE, Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, presentation by a woman named Mary Roach. Some of you may know of her. She's been a medium since the 90s. She also received the same MA in transpersonal psychology that I just finished up at Atlantic University, which is also part of Edgar Cayce's compound down there in Virginia Beach. And the name of her talk was Your Soul's Mission in an Aquarian Age. And as I thought about what I should talk about this week, it said, oh, there it is, there's a good topic. She gave an excellent overview and a presentation talking about this transition from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarian and what it means. And I'm going to take part of what she talked about in the early. She went on to a different direction, but she says that this transition from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age began really in earnest in 1945. And so now I'd like to start in looking at that. Now, as you can understand, these kinds of transitions do not happen overnight. Sometimes they take several years, sometimes they take hundreds of years. But she says that she looks at the Piscean age, not shockingly, beginning with the birth of Christ. And they had a miscalculation with the calendar, if anybody knew. He was actually born in 4 BC and not in 0 BC. But that's when she points to the beginning of the Piscean age with his birth. And the Piscean age is mostly known for earthbound focus, power, love is unbalanced, it's unconsciously creating life through karmic lessons, and it's working through soul agreements. In the Piscean age, the soul patterns reveal themselves. It's personal crisis and things for us to work on. That's all part of it. And again, she points to 1945 as when this transition started moving in from the Piscean age to Aquarian age, and I know there's a lot of debate on that, and maybe a couple hundred years from now we can figure it all out. But she said in 1945 we had World War II, the second big war. We had communications was starting to come online. You had radio. We had the onset of the nuclear age, which had a significant, and still does, repercussions for our dimension and what we did and what we were capable of. And she also points out in 1945 that was when Edgar Cayce transitioned to the other side. He was the prophet, maybe, as you look at it, as the end of the Piscean age. And of course, from the 1950s to the 1970s, and I think a real transformation catalyst has been information. So in the 50s to the 70s, we had TV coming online. We also started doing space exploration, so we're no longer looking internally, we're looking externally. We have social movements going on. We have the civil rights movement, we have the sexual revolution. People are starting to look at psychology, and they're looking at self-help books. It's no longer put your head down and till your farm and then do that for 40, 50 years and die. We're now saying, well, how did we get here? What does it all mean? And again, this is the beginning of the age of information, and then this accelerates in the 80s and 90s. We have the mass media and cable television and nonstop barrages. We have PCs start up, and you got mail, right? AOL. Life speeds up, and they called them portable phones, but if everybody remembers them, they were about like the size of a brick. Apparently they didn't do very well for your health either. And then we have this conscious awareness really accelerating in the 1990s and 2000s, where self-healing becomes a big part. So the Piscean age stuff comes up, and then we start healing it. And then in the Aquarian age transition, she points out that we're now awakening to the soul. It is know thyself, basically, seeking awareness about what's really about. Why are we here? Opening yourselves up for healing. And then in the last 20 years or so, the cell phones go from just being a telephone to a personal computer that took up the size of a full room in the 1950s to have the power you have now in your hand. Equality expands and contracts, she says, and then if you haven't noticed, life exceeds at an increasingly high speed. And then in 2020, she has what we call the big timeout, or not if you were in the first responding category. But this was a way to say, okay, what works for me and what doesn't? What values do I need to focus on? People had a lot of work balance issues. They're like, I don't want to pick this area. I'm spending 4 hours a day commuting to some job I don't like. You know what? I don't really like my spouse. That's another issue for some of you. You just lock yourself down, and that'll certainly show if there are any fault lines in that relationship. And then she says what's going to occur from moving forward is what we've learned in this timeout, what we learn now, the focus going forward is going to be this time to work on these values. And whereas Piscean age was the time of I, the Aquarian age is the time of we. It's the era of consciousness. We're going to be co-creating with the divine. It's the era of empathy, fairness, balance, cooperation. It's really going to be the ability to manifest heaven here on earth. And many of us, as I said, I tied this in a little bit from the 3D to 5D, and last year Will Harris put together a wonderful little chart, and I'm just going to tick down some of these things. They might sound familiar from what I talked about. So in 3D consciousness, or you can probably say in Piscean, it's ego-based. In 5D, it's soul-based. 3D, we have conditional love. 5D, we have unconditional love. 3D is people believing they're victims. 5D, people believe they co-create their own reality. 3D is logical thinking. 5D is intuitive thinking. 3D, the mind rules. Through 5D, the heart rules. In 3D, people fear chaos, randomness, and unfairness. In 5D, people believe in divine order. Everything happens for the highest good. It's a scarcity mindset in 3D. It's an abundance mindset in 5D. And we have polarity in 3D, and harmony and cooperation in 5D. But we didn't just jump from one to the other, right? Our generation, those of us, and even those who are coming in recently, 1945 wasn't that long ago. I was born in 62, so I didn't quite get there, but even in my time period, things have just accelerated, and the traditional ways and structures are under siege. Institutions like the church and the government are no longer trustworthy and are becoming more and more irrelevant to a greater number of people every day. Pharmaceuticals are dictating what passes as medical care today, and more people are seeking alternative ways of healing. There's now great confusion in the world. We have one official narrative and most people not believing it. Even family structures are breaking apart. And what even defines a family is under debate today. It seems that all the rules of engagement which we learned growing up are no longer valid. Many people are turning to drugs and alcohol and other self-medications as a way to cope. That's not surprising. Yet we have a different calling, because those of us who walk in the doors at CSE, as Sharon will say, are light workers. It doesn't mean that we're not impacted by all these changes that are going around. We're part of the culture. We have family members that haven't quite moved where we are. And as empaths, we feel a lot of pain that's part of this transition. Many of us have come from difficult upbringings and or unsuccessful marriages or partnerships. But this is where our ability to heal and transform others comes from. We are wounded healers. It's part of our soul. Our job, therefore, is to first and foremost try to rise above it all. Understand that ages come and go, and that as long as we're united with the divine wisdom that each and every one carries, we'll be okay. It's then that we can help people find their way. That is our primary role for coming back. And you can have a long talk with yourself on the other side about why you did it, and I know that I will. But this is our soul's mission for this incarnation anyway. It's why we chose to come back. And not surprisingly, the energies are changing as well. Time is moving at warp speed. And they used to say just because you're getting older, but I don't think that's it. I mean, I'm literally watching like in those movies where the time goes shh. And it's a rugged people that have to be able to be part of this transition. And yet we still have 3D issues to address. We didn't come in here totally in 5D, and I think there are some that come in totally in 5D and they don't make it, quite honestly. It's a tough battleground to be in. It's like a mud fight. But it means we have the strength to be in this transition. Some days are better, I'm sure, than others. But part of this time for us personally is to allow those issues to come to the forefront, allow the 3D issues to come to the forefront. And you must deal with them now, or you're not going to admit you can't make this transition. So just some practical suggestions. First and foremost, be compassionate with yourself and don't compare yourself to others. Just because your parents stayed married for 50 or 60 years, raised 5 kids, and stayed together all the way to the end, doesn't necessarily mean that'll happen to you. Those were far different times in the past 30 or 40 years that put a lot of stress and tension on relationships. Spouses have grown and evolved at different paces, and the person we thought we married 20 or 30 years ago aren't necessarily the same people today. And guess what? Neither are we. When the airlines give the spiel in the beginning of a flight about losing oxygen, they always say, put the mask on yourself before you put it on your child. And the same goes for us as well. Find practices like daily affirmations that empower you to love yourself first and foremost. If you feel alone, that's part of the light worker's journey. And you're not alone. This is a period of deep introspection, and the only ones who can truly understand you is the divine, more than you even know yourself. And an important step here, which I've done, thankfully, through my experience here at CSE, is to find your tribe. There are a lot of people around here that talk and think the same way, and we can go into our normal families, if you call them normal, and we want to pull our hair out. But then I come here to Thursday night, or I come here to Sunday, and I start talking about ETs and transitions for eternity, and it is a way, it's self-help, self-therapy, group therapy, and all the rest. So it makes a difference. Find people that you can hang out with, even if, tell your family you're going to the library or something. And then a mantra of this time period is heal thyself. Don't be afraid to go into the sludge. So check the baggage at the door. So in order to do so, you need to understand what's blocking you. We have a lot of energy healers around. We have Denise, we have Lynn, we have Miriam, I see is back here. A lot of people are doing energy. We do it our energy healing. We do it in the mornings here before the service. And Jesus said from the cross to his accusers and executioners, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Part of releasing your baggage is to do an inventory and see who you need to forgive. Anger, blame, and resentment that linger is only hurting you and preventing you from getting into the next stage. If you don't want to confront the person, write them a letter, mail it, and let go and let God. Take care of yourself physically. Eat well, get enough sleep, and do some type of exercise. Meditation, of course. Be grateful, be detached. Learn the power of now, Eckhart Tolle. Spend time in nature with animals and children. And finally, have fun. As Sergeant Hulk said in the movie Stripes, lighten up, Francis. We all take ourselves way too seriously, me included. Enjoy the ride, enjoy your tribes, make plans, make trips, visit people. A lot of introspection can be heavy stuff, so take a break. In a period that was similar to ours, I came across a quote from Saint Germain. Some of you may know he was one of the church fathers. And he wrote in 396 AD, so, almost 400 years after Christ was born, he wrote, I shudder when I think of the catastrophe of our time. For 20 years or more, the blood of Romans has been shed daily between Constantinople and the Julian Alps. Scythia, Thrace, Macedonia, Dardania, Dacia, Thessaly, Achaia, Epirus, Dalmatia, the Panios. Each and all of these have been sacked and pillaged and plundered by the Goths and Samaritans, Cades and Alans, Huns and Vandals and Marchmen. The Roman world is falling, yet we hold up our heads instead of bowing them. The Age of Aquarius, which ran from approximately 2000 BC to Christ and was marked by great empires like the Romans and the Greeks, was now ending. Unthinkable to those who had a glimpse of this great empire's prowess. The Roman Empire was falling. It was now the age of Pisces. We are at a similar time, and maybe it'll take a couple hundred years for the Age of Aquarius to take hold. But I doubt it, though, considering how fast time is going. The traditions and institutions of the Piscean age are showing serious signs of instability and decline. Yet, as St. Jerome said, it's not a time to bow our heads. It's a time to salute each other and every one of us for having the courage to return during such a tumultuous period. The culture needs light workers now more than ever. Hold your heads high, brethren, and shine your light. It's why we came back, to help usher in a new age. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Deirdre. Thank you for Pastoral Committee for this opportunity to speak.